I want you to imagine for a moment that you're an insect. And you just woke up for the day and you're going out to get some breakfast. And along the way, you pass all kinds of plants and wildflowers, and you see all your neighbors out and about. And you're a respectable bug, so you smile and you wave to every single one of them. And there are a lot. In fact, 80% of all animal life on Earth is insects. And they are busy. In fact, because of their productivity, they generate about $577 billion a year in global agricultural products. That's 1 out of 3 bites of human food that comes from the hard work of these busy pollinators. Now, you love this place, you love the energy of it. This is your sanctuary. Now imagine being transported to an entirely different habitat, but one that's much more common than the last. What used to be wildflowers and plants is now endless horizon in every direction. And all of those neighbors that you just had are nowhere to be seen. That's because over the last 50 years, 75% of those neighbors have disappeared due to habitat loss and pesticides. And what's worse is that short walk to breakfast you thought you had is now a long, treacherous journey. The sad reality of this is that is what 2% of the United States looks like. And it is the most dominant habitat in the country. It's an area that, if combined, is about the size of Nebraska and is the largest agricultural system in the country, one that's 3 times larger than the next largest, which is corn. I am talking, of course, about the American lawn. So how did we get here? Well, it all started in medieval Europe as a way to defend castles from approaching medieval armies. The guards would stand on top of these walls and be able to see across great expanses of lawn and sound the alarm when the army came close. This eventually became used as a symbol of wealth, and then European architects would integrate lawns into their landscaping designs. And then when Europeans came to the New World, they brought with them this very idea, along with the seeds, to start their own lawns in their new home. But instead of guarding their lawns against approaching armies, they now guard their lawns against the disapproving stares from neighbors judging weeds in their grass. Americans spend $100 billion on lawns a year to keep up with the Joneses. That's money spent on watering, fertilizing, applying herbicide, applying pesticide, and mowing a habitat that is essentially a biological desert. And as this habitat is increasing, we're seeing a reciprocal decrease in wildlife populations. So my interest in this ecological drama started when I was younger. And I too, like the insect at the very beginning of this talk, found sanctuary among the wildflowers and the plants of a small neighborhood creek just outside my childhood home. And there my neighbors were also insects and fish and amphibians and mammals and all the things. And my friends and I would go down and play in the clear blue water and build forts and do whatever kids did in the woods back in the day. And one time we went down to the creek and things were different. You know, the water was brown, the frogs were silent, and I was worried. So I decided to investigate. I went upstream a little bit ways and tried to figure out what was going on, and I found an area that had used to be trees was clear cut. And I could see the tire tracks in the dirt, and I could see the water running off the construction site into the creek, making it brown. And it looked like they were building houses and destroying my sanctuary to do so. So I felt like I had to do something. So the following day, I put together a petition. I got all of my friends to sign it, and that evening I went to the construction site and I slapped that petition on that permit board and thought, this will show them. And you know what happened? They built the houses. Absolutely nothing. I wasn't sure if maybe we didn't format the petition right, or maybe we didn't get enough signatures, or perhaps it was because we were in third grade. I don't know. But I remember feeling as though democracy didn't work that day. And I knew that I could never let that happen again. And so I dedicated my life to conservation. I became a wildlife biologist and studied animals to help inform management practices. And then I became a filmmaker and a photographer, and I traveled the world to work with amazing communities and conservation organizations to make films, design education programs, do impact campaigns, all to support communities who lived in areas of high biodiversity to ensure that what I experienced as a kid never happened to them and the animals that they cared about. But the more I traveled, the more I realized the things that I had here at home were cool, and I really gained an appreciation for them. And I realized that conservation starts at home. And so, to learn more about that dynamic, I did a quick experiment where I compared two different habitats to learn about how they interact with home. So I went to a lawn habitat, and I went to a overgrown sort of habitat that people would call weeds, and I did an experiment that every single one of you here could do at home. I took a butterfly net, and I did an equal number of sweeping in both habitats, and I collected all the macroinvertebrates in a net, twirled it closed, grabbed a jar, collected all the macroinvertebrates in the jar, and then I took photos of all of them to get a better sense of the comparison between these two habitats. And this is what I found in the American lawn habitat. And this is what I found in the weeds. So as you can see, one of these habitats is so much better at supporting biodiversity than the other. And shortly after I did this experiment, I bought a house. And that house sits on an area that probably was just like my childhood creek. And that house was also surrounded by lawn. And I felt kind of conflicted about buying this house because I thought that I was no better than the construction company from my childhood and that I was causing deforestation as well. But I realized it didn't have to be that way and that I could allow nature to come back into my yard and surround my house like a blanket of plants, creating an oasis for wildlife. And so that's what I did. I started by removing parts of my lawn and replacing it with native habitat. I put in native wildflowers, native shrubs. I started using landscaping elements like piles of rocks and logs. I put up birdhouses, all to provide habitat for species to interact in and hide in. And while doing that, I kept a couple things in mind. One big thing is not all plants are created equal. Some are much better at supporting biodiversity than others. For example, some species of oaks can support up to 2,000 different species of animals. And goldenrod can feed up to 115 different species of butterfly alone. I also chose plants that were native to my specific area because they were best evolved to handle the soil type and whatever weather could throw at it. The animals also in that area have co-evolved with those plants and are best supported by them. So if you're trying to learn about what plants are native to your specific area, there are tons of resources online, and you could go to your local nursery if they have a native plant department, and you can ask for recommendations, and I'm sure they'll sell you a couple plants along the way. So one of the cool things about native plants is they have incredible root systems that completely outmatch turf, which have very short root systems. Now, turf is grass that's cultivated to form a uniform ground cover, and native plants are native plants. And so they have these immense root systems that are more resilient to environmental extremes. And because of that, it takes a little bit longer for your garden to mature. And that's okay. They're putting all of that effort into those roots. So you're not a failing gardener. It just takes a little bit of time. It's all part of the natural process. So let's say you've made the commitment and you are going to go native with your landscaping. The next part is easy. And I'm going to say something that's a little controversial up here on this little red circle. My advice is this: be lazy. Don't be like that little pollinator, always working so hard. Sleep in on a Saturday, don't mow your lawn, don't deadhead your flowers, don't rake your leaves. What you'll do is you'll save money, you'll save energy, you'll save time, you'll save resources. You'll change the way the water flows across your landscape. That'll help reduce the amount of chemicals going into our waterways. You'll be inviting all of those species back into your yard that were once extirpated, and you'll be making that little short walk to breakfast for that insect so much easier. So since converting parts of my lawn into native habitat, I have seen a wild array of animals come back into my yard. It started with wildflowers, and then the insects, and then the birds, and then the amphibians, and the reptiles, and then the mammals. If you build it, they will come. I've even started keeping a scorecard in my backyard on a little chalkboard to keep track of all the animals coming into my yard over the years. And it's been so cool to see nature just blossom all around my house. So this is conservation in action, and it starts with each and every one of you. It's more than just gardening. We're reconnecting, restoring, and rewilding our world one backyard at a time.